legends where magic meets the heart. Commander's Pod, where the stories unfold, with heroes and villains new and old. Duncan, Jeff, and Sloan got the word. In the world of EV8 we play.
Hello everyone, welcome to Commander's Pod once again. I am your podfather Duncan.
I'm Sloan.
I'm Jeff.
And thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to talk about the new bracket system that they introduced and the Gamechangers. We're going to find out what's aggravating Jeff, and we'll have some tips for you guys. So it should be fun. But Aggro Jeff, what is aggravating you? There was a lot of debate about this while you were gone.
Yeah, you guys I think kind of nailed it. The crowds at MegaCon were ridiculous. That's just stupid. I don't know why. I mean, it was shoulder to shoulder the entire time. And then on top of that, I had to have some very uncomfortable conversations with my 12 and 13-year-old boys about some of the dress code that people chose to wear there. Let's just say there's some semblance of decency, I would hope, but there's not there.
Right.
It's wild. So crowds and awkward conversations, not a good time.
No, we pretty much called that one.
Yeah, I guess because you went on the worst day you could possibly go if you just want to walk around.
Well, there were celebrities we
around.
wanted to see.
That were there Saturday.
But
yeah.
you couldn't really see them anyways because they were like...
Yeah, the good ones, their lines are like 400 people deep.
And but if it wasn't that, like if I didn't decide before I went to St. Kitts, and St. Kitts I got food poisoning, which I don't think you're traveling until you get food poisoning in some foreign country. But that was rough. That was not.
I mean, that's saying something though that MegaCon still was what he went with after that.
Well, I thought it was fair to you guys because there's no way you could have known I got food poisoning.
That's true.
It's true. I get it. I don't think Sloan or I have a problem with it. We knew what to expect there. We weren't there, but I'm saying we've been there in years past.
I've actually cosplayed on Saturday there. And
he's been one of those scandals.
Yeah.
Duncan, we went once as families, both of our families, but I think we went on like a Thursday.
I think
it was great.
It was
Thursday and Fridays are great just for walking around and checking out the vendors. But yeah, if you go Saturday, don't anticipate to be able to get far.
Yep. So, and don't go to MagicCon or to Comic-Con in New York like you were thinking about because it's going to be 10 times worse.
Yeah.
And
I'm
definitely don't go to San Diego Comic-Con.
Nope, I'm out. I don't know why anyone would want to do that. It's a terrible time.
But let's jump right into our main topic, the new tier brackets and the Game Changer list. So a little bit different from what they announced back in October.
A lot better.
Better. I think it is better. I think it still has some work to be done, but let's start off by pointing out this is a beta test.
Right.
This is not final form.
So people freaking out should just take a chill pill, calm down.
Yeah, exactly. They want feedback on this. You can give feedback on the Discord channel, on their official Commander channel, on their official Discord. And you can also, if you happen to be at MagicCon Chicago this weekend, they're going to be having tables set up just for testing this. And people from the rules, they don't call it the rules committee. It's the RFC. I don't remember what they...
Yeah.
But anyway, they're going to be there actually interacting and getting direct feedback. So that's pretty cool. I actually almost last minute booked it. I only go to Vegas for the MagicCons, but I almost went to this one just because I think that's something cool to be a part of.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think in the article, which we're going to reference a lot here in this segment, guys, because obviously this is still fresh and new. I think in the article they even talked about having people interact with this specifically so they can see it out in the wild and how it does. So this is the MagicCon in Chicago will be the first official, I guess, backed previewing of this by Wizards.
Right.
So
a lot of the feedback they're going to get this weekend is going to have a direct impact on what it looks like.
Right. So if you're going to be there or you're planning on going there, do not troll. Please give good feedback.
And the next thing, before we even get into it, the other thing you have to realize, these are not rules. These are not like you have to follow this. This is guidelines for how to have better Rule Zero conversations and how to better match up your decks.
But as they get better at it, I would assume this is going to become more like you could do something else if you want to. Like we have different rules for starting hand than some people do.
Right.
But in general, it's suggested that you do it the certain way.
Right. Mm-hmm. But this isn't meant to affect your gameplay. It's supposed to affect who you match with and how you match.
100%.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is
And maybe affect your deck building.
potentially. Yeah,
I've thought about my deck building more as I've looked at this and sort of thought, oh, well, maybe I won't put that card in, or maybe I can put that card in,
Right.
like if I want it to be a higher level.
But let's get into it. We're
Yeah.
going to go through. We'll take turns reading each. There's 5 different brackets, and we'll go through just a brief description of each bracket, and then we'll go back and individually analyze each one.
right.
Okay. So I'll start with tier 1. Bracket 1 is exhibition. Your ultra casual commander deck. There's no mass land denial or extra turns. There's no 2-card infinite combos, no cards from the Game Changer list can be in your deck, and few tutors. And I think, well, we'll move on.
So-
I almost started getting
Yeah, I know.
because it just immediately,
I know
like,
you want
triggers
to.
me.
I know. So
So why don't you read 2?
yeah, bracket 2 is going to be core, is the name of it. It's going to be the average current pre-constructed deck. There's going to be no mass land denial, no chaining extra turns, no 2-card infinite combos, no game changers, and again, just a few tutors in that one as well.
3 is upgraded beyond the strength of an average pre-con deck. No mass land denial. No chaining extra turns. Late game 2-card infinite combos are allowed. And 3 game changers are allowed.
Number 4 is optimized. It's high power commander. It's time to go wild. So there are no restrictions other than the ban list.
Yep. And number 5, last one's going to be CEDH. This is going to be high powered with a very competitive and metagame focused mindset. No restrictions other than the banned list.
Okay, so let's start with exhibition 1.
Should
bracket
we
1.
should we just go through some game changers real quick? Because otherwise they're not going to understand what.
Well, we're going to go through as we go through. We'll
We
talk
are?
about
Okay.
things that why they're not on the game changers and why they're. So, for instance, no mass land denial. That's going to include things that aren't necessarily land destruction,
Right.
like shimmer.
Right.
Like stasis, I guess, would fall under that.
Blood Moon,
Blood Moon.
Winter Orb, I think,
Yep.
would
Winter
fall.
Orb.
All the
isn't-
stuff at the top of the salt list.
Yeah, and then there's another one too. Isn't there a new one that came out that changes your all lands to islands, all non-basics
I
to
think
islands?
there is, yeah.
It just came
more
out
subs,
recently. So, and to kind of give you guys an idea too, from the article, which was written by Gavin, who's one of the people on the new committee here for this, and I would say kind of the bigger voice as of right now, at the very least. They give a very good breakdown of what each one is. So this one says, winning is not primarily the goal here, as it's more about showing off something unusual you've made. Villains yelling in the art. Everything has the number 4. Oops, all horses. Those are all fair game. The games here are likely to go long and end slowly. So that's kind of the synopsis they give for this bracket 1. And they chose their wording very specifically here. So in 1, no mass land denial or extra turns, period.
Right, and 2 says no chaining extra turns.
Right, which
trips
is
some
distinct-
people up 'cause
right.
It looks
Like it's the same thing,
yeah.
but it's actually not. So there is a distinction between 1 and 2. But yeah, so no 2-card infinite combos. That one's pretty self-explanatory.
Yep.
You can't just chain 2 cards and infinitely win and be considered a 1. And then no game changers. Now,
And so nothing from the game changer list.
right, which there's a big list. We won't go through all the cards,
It's
but I do know
40
we're going to.
cards right now.
Yeah, exactly on the
But
nose,
the-
40.
they said that's just happenstance. They didn't try and get to 40, and the list could grow or reduce. It's more than likely going to grow.
Yeah, and I think and something else they did address about the game changers, which you guys can correct me, but I believe he said that this is kind of like a pseudo watch list now for him also.
Well, what he said, yes, he said sort of, but don't worry about the cards on this list necessarily. But if there were to be bans, it's probably going to be something of game changer level.
Right.
So
And-
that's probably where you would see it. And if they do any unbans, they'll probably have them on the game changers before they release them fully.
Right.
Just to kind of as a testing ground. But
Mm-hmm.
the other thing I would say about exhibition bracket 1 is that I think there's another thing that falls in here that they're not considering, and that's the very low power. Soul Ring is too OP. They want to play very high mana cost legendary creatures, like really I call it the Elder Dragon Highlander, the old original slug it out, slow games where they are trying to win, but they're not playing fast mana of any
Right.
type.
I mean, that does bring up an interesting point, because one of their big controversial things was the bans that they did last year, right before the old committee kind of disbanded, was pretty much all fast mana, right?
Yep.
And then they didn't address that at all in this bracket system. There's nothing about like
Well, Ancient Tombs in here, Chrome Box.
well, but what I'm saying is like Exposition, for example, doesn't even say like no fast mana, because like Arcane Signet, Soul Ring,
because most of fast mana is in here,
well,
other
but
than
Ring's
Soul
good,
Ring.
and Arcane Signet.
Yeah, Arcane Signet and Soul Ring are not in here,
you
but
know,
every other
any of your signets, any of your
anything under 2 mana is on here basically. It's fast mana.
That's not Soul Ring.
That's not Soul Ring, right? Because Soul Ring, I think the idea is they're grandfathering it in
Right.
to everything.
They
none of your
of
talismans are on here either. which
Yeah,
a
but
lot of
those are
people-
2. I don't think those are not. What I'm guessing from this is they're saying 2 mana ramp is okay.
Yeah.
right. But what I'm saying is kind of addressing what Duncan's saying, as well as the primary focus of their bans last year was, you know, they want to slow down, and it's weird that they didn't maybe make that part of 1, right? That seems like that would have been a good place to say, hey, no mana rocks below 3 CMC.
Except that many of the decks they're talking about, those exhibition decks, may play mana rocks, but they're not going anywhere fast.
Well,
even with that.
Not
Right.
just that. I think maybe it does address it, because if you're playing all cards that have a bad guy yelling in it, typically when people build those decks,
They won't play.
they're not going to play Soul Ring because it doesn't have a guy yelling in it.
Right.
Whatever ramp you play has to have a guy in a hat. So if the card doesn't have a guy in a hat, it's not going in this.
Right.
So I suppose that's how they balance it.
That could be.
Yeah, I mean,
it depends how strict. I mean, you're very strict when you build theme decks, but they're not this low powered.
Right.
But you're very strict. Like you're like, I wouldn't play that because it doesn't have any way that. I
Right.
can
You're
tie
gonna
it in.
pick up.
But some people are like, hey, 80% of my deck is like that, but I had to have some other stuff to make
And
it
some
work.
of that is okay. Like, let's say, because typically I'm playing like elves, dragons, dinosaurs. But let's say I decide to play like, what's a really niche kindred deck that there's just not
Birds.
a lot of support for. Birds is pretty good now, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
Minotaurs.
Minotaurs. Let's say
Yeah,
I'm playing
Minotaurs is a
Minotaurs.
good one.
You might have to like throw in some cards that aren't on theme, just because if you don't, the deck
you won't
work,
have enough cards,
right?
probably.
Like, who are you going to play? It would
Yeah.
fall somewhere in 2 or 1.
Yeah.
And so you have to like play cards off theme.
Right.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, that's one. How do we feel about one? Do we feel like that's a fair bracket?
Yeah, I don't care. I would never build a deck. In
Yeah,
this. It sounds
I
silly.
don't.
I wouldn't build a one.
It would
ever.
be very difficult for me to try to build a 1. Like that's a.
I would build all of these. I won't build a one. I have no interest.
And-
I don't want to
And
play
more
that game.
importantly, I don't care. I'd build one. Just there's no way in God's green earth that I'm playing this deck. Because when they say it's going to end slow, good grief. That game is going to go on forever.
Right.
But
exactly.
some people do that. Some people, and that's what I'm talking about, the low power commander where Soul Ring is on their table ban list because it's too strong. They want one game to be 3 hours long.
Yeah. I
that's-
mean,
yeah.
just play more single target removal.
Just,
your game will go longer.
You know, get a life, and maybe then you'll have some more time.
No, okay, let's clean that up. Anybody
But-
who wants to play once is still amazing and awesome. That's your
I'm
style
teasing,
of
I'm
play.
teasing.
Like, just because I don't want to do it doesn't mean I
No,
don't think
I'm
it's cool
teasing.
someone else does.
It is funny how you know they allow a few tutors still even in 1. But as you'll see when we
I
hit
think
the
it should
game
be
changer.
0 or 1.
Yeah,
Right.
but if it has a hat on it, I mean, if it has a bad guy yelling in it, like, I think that's cool. Play it.
So I mean I think
But it's got to be on theme.
I mean, also there are tutors that we don't even think about because they're so expensive, like as far as mana cost,
right.
Or
Because
so
they hit-
ineffective that they just
In the Game Changers, they did hit a lot of the stronger tutors. So
Oh, yeah.
and I think that's part of the reason why they're like, sure, you can put a few tutors in there. All the good ones are
some
gone
of the
anyways.
best, some of the best
Like-
one decks that I've seen, you think low power, so you think not expensive. They're playing very expensive cards.
no, to get the
Right.
cards that all have hats.
Yeah, they're
Some of
niche.
those were
Yeah.
like from the first
Yeah.
few sets.
So they might play those niche tutors
But-
that are very, very expensive and not very good.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, overall, I'll probably never build a 1. But I think, in my opinion, maybe capping the tutors would have been the only change I'd make. But besides that, I think they did a pretty good job with kind of demonstrating how casual one is, especially with the description they gave in the article.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe it should be 0-1 tutor, but other than that, I think
Yeah.
it's fair. Unless you also want to restrict how many mana rocks or something like that.
Also,
how much ramp.
you have to remember too. Oh, they have a tutor. Where are they going to go get another card with a hat?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like
That's
what are
the
you-
other
that's true.
thing.
What
to
are you
think
worried
about?
about?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm gonna put a tutor in here so I
Yeah.
can,
Go get another terrible card.
Right, exactly.
All right, so bracket 2 is core, the average pre-constructed deck. And by that, they don't mean all the pre-constructed decks. There are some that are a little more powerful.
Certainly the newer ones.
Right.
Yeah.
But like Thunder Junction, those were all probably a 2. None of those were super.
Well, what I would say too is, again, based off the verbiage that they use in the article in here, is it's more of like they looked at all the pre-constructed decks they made over all time, and they're like, okay, we would say that if you took the average, there might be one occasionally that hits close to a 4, some of them that hit close to a 1, but the majority of them are going to be sprinkled usually through 2. And I think that's the idea behind what they were talking about when they said that. It's not...
Yeah, and 2 is not as low as you might think. I have commander decks that are 2, and I was
Right.
surprised. I was like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
I think that's more powerful than a 2, but it's a 2.
Now, the other thing that we probably should have said up front, intent is not in here,
Right.
right? You can build a deck that technically is a 2,
No,
but your intent is to win quick.
I disagree with you. I think intent is in here. I think that's why their explanation is very important.
Well, they specifically said intent is not something they can't quantify.
Well, you can't quantify it, but in the explanation they give, like for 1, they're saying, look, this is these type of decks.
Right.
In 2, what's the explanation for 2?
So 2 says, while bracket 2 decks may not have every perfect card, they have the potential for big splashy turns, strong engines, and are built in a way that works towards winning the game. While the game is unlikely to end out of nowhere and generally goes 9 or more turns, you can expect big swings.
Right. So you could build a deck that follows all of that and still have an intent with the deck of doing something that is not going to take
I
9
think
or
the
10.
first sentence is very important, though, when it says, like, you're not putting all the most optimal stuff in here.
Right. You don't have to.
Right. Well, I think what Duncan's trying to say is like there is some times where you will sit down and play a deck 15 times, and normally it will not win before turn 9 or whatever. But one game, it's like, oh, I literally have the perfect hand.
Is
I
that
won
what
by
you're
turn
saying?
5. I
Or
think
are you
it's
saying
saying
you could
you
build a
built-
2 to beat a 4.
No, I'm not saying you can build a 2 to be a 4, but I'm saying you could build a 2 that your intent is not to be a 2. Yes, you could build a 2 that could beat a 4. So that maybe that is my point, I guess.
Well, then-
you could build something that by all the standards is a 2, but the way you built it, it can take on 4s.
Yeah, then I would say by the definition here, yes. By the sort of soul of it, no. Because
Right.
you should know it, too. Your goal isn't to build the optimal deck.
Right.
That's not what 2 is doing.
But that's my whole point.
Yeah.
You can have a deck that on paper is a 2, but you know darn well
And
it's not a 2, in which case don't represent it as a 2.
And
You
I
can
feel
say,
like Gavin addressed that. He
right.
said some people will, those people who still show up and pub stomp people, they're going to show up with a 2 that's clearly not a 2. It's optimal.
Right.
It's optimized. It just doesn't have game
Right.
changers. on it.
So that's what I'm saying. Just because your deck follows all the rules to fall into a 2, don't call it a 2 when you know it's not.
Right. If you're
Don't say, well, I have to because Gavin said.
Well, right, but he didn't. He said it wasn't optimal. If you're like, yeah, this is optimal. Every choice in here is optimal other than I didn't put any game changers.
And
It's
I only
like
have a few tutors.
yeah, and I only have a few tutors, which is a lot of tutors,
But
by the way.
optimal's a
Most of
very-
my decks don't have any tutors.
For certain things, there's nothing optimal. There's just what there is.
What do you mean?
For certain
Sure there is.
functions.
There
yeah.
are certain cards that don't have replacements.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
But like when you're playing single target removal or card draw, for instance, in my zombie deck, there's a card called Distant Melody. That's amazing. I don't have the card. I already used it in another deck. So I'm playing Greed, which is also a card draw. Nowhere near as good as Distant Melody, but I didn't go out and buy Distant Melody.
Right.
That's what 2 is. That type of mindset.
Right. Yes, it is. But again, I'm talking about the stuff where
The pub stompers, yeah.
No, I'm not talking about necessarily pub stomping. I'm talking
Okay.
about just because your deck fits into the category, don't feel like you have to call it a 2. Don't go the other way. Don't feel like these are hard and fast rules you know what you want your deck to do and what it can do. That's all I'm saying.
And you know how you designed it.
Right.
So pay attention to that. If it's
Right.
optimal, it's not a
Right.
2.
Just because you designed it to do something, if this says it's a 2, don't say it's a 2. That's all I'm saying. So how do we feel about 2?
So just to reiterate, so it's no mass land denial. I'm okay with that. No chaining extra turns. So this is one that, again, when you look on it on paper, like we're literally doing right now, it can slightly trip you up because you think, oh, it's like 1. There's no extra turns. But this specifically doesn't say that. This actually says, no, you can have extra turns. You just can't chain 6 of them together.
And that is where I'm okay with extra turns. If I have a rule that says, hey, to be in here, you can't chain extra turns, I feel much better. Okay, now I don't have to counter it. I don't have to worry. Go ahead, take your extra turn.
Take your
Sure,
one extra turn.
because you're probably not doing that much, and it's not really that different than an extra combat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm
or
okay with
ramp.
that. It's the chaining of extra turns I really have a problem with. And almost everybody that plays extra turns has multiple instances so they can chain it. And I don't like that. But
Right,
anyway.
and so I do think that is a good distinction between 1 and 2, where it does up the power level a little bit, but it doesn't up it so much that it's a drastic change, right? So I think that's a good change on their part. No 2-card infinite combos, no game changers still, and a few tutors. The game changers one is the one I have a problem with.
Yeah. So just spoiler alert. In 3, they go up to 3 game changers.
Right.
So you go from none
To none.
to 3.
Right.
I think there should be 1 or 2.
I'm okay with 1 or 2, but I think there should be no tutors.
No. Well, so wait a minute. We already said exhibition. We're okay if they have 1.
No, on theme. So I guess I would say you can have a tutor at 2.
I
maybe
would say
1 tutor.
I would say one tutor and 1 game changer, because what that means is you could have 2 tutors essentially, because you're giving up your game changer spot for one of the tutors that are on that list. You see what I'm saying? So so if you do 1 tutor and then 1 game changer, they can decide to put a second tutor or a different card from the game changers list, is what I would do.
But I do think there should be at least 1 or 2 game changers allowed here. I don't know why it makes sense to have none, then jump to 3.
Agreed.
Yes, I don't disagree with that. That's fine.
I think 0 and 1, 1 and 2, and then when we get
I
to
think
3,
what they are doing, though, is saying, look, these game changers are really, really powerful.
Some of them. Some of the list. Not all cards on the list are equal.
That's true. I mean, that is a true statement. But I do think, and again, kind of going back to like their intent with this is they're trying to make sure that someone can't, like he said, just win the game out of nowhere and run away with it out of nowhere.
Right.
The intent of 2 is to have something that has a goal of winning, but doesn't do it in the blink of an eye.
Right.
Like, it's kind of one of those things where you see it coming and you have opportunities to stop it, I think is the idea. And I will say that there, like you said, there are certain game changer cards that are definitely more I win the game, and other ones that are like it definitely helps me, but it doesn't win the game.
Right.
So I think that might be why you're still not seeing them here. But again, I think 1 game changer in bracket in bracket 2 with 1 tutor would be good. I think that's a positive change. Otherwise, most of it, I'm okay with the rest of it. I think allowing extra turn spells, just not chaining them, good idea.
Yeah.
I think still allowing no mass land denial is still good, because it's still casual enough to where it's something that people aren't going to have a feels bad moment where, well, I can't play the rest of this game because that thing's keep me from doing stuff, So, and I think again that's more the intent with these first 2 brackets for sure.
Yep. So bracket 3 is upgraded beyond the strength of an average precon. So probably a precon that you've upgraded, that you've tweaked.
Yeah, and then again, like we were saying before, there's a handful of precons I think that fall in just naturally by themselves because they were designed quite well. The first one that jumps to my mind is the Merfolk one from Lost Caverns of Ixalan was really good. And then the energy one actually from Modern Horizons 3 was really well done. Very optimized, very pointed. Now, granted, they don't have a lot of energy cards, so probably made it a little bit easier to make that one better themed and optimized. But there are a couple precons I think that will fall into this category. But I
actually think this is where Casual Commander really sits.
Yeah, this is
and
where
most of my decks are right here.
I'd be fine living in 3.
Yeah,
I'm fine if all my decks were a 3. They're not. Obviously, probably most of my decks are actually a 4. But I'm happy to live in 3 because now I know you can't chain extra turns.
Yeah, and
You know?
I
I'm-
I don't know how I feel about the late game 2-card infinite combos. So.
I don't like the vagueness of late game. What is late game?
I don't even. Why do you even need 2-card infinite combos there?
Because they're fun.
Yeah, but it's
And sometimes
it's
turn
sometimes
14, you want the game to end.
yeah.
yeah,
And-
but infinite combos don't necessarily win the game anyway. Some of them do.
I mean,
if
there's
it's
a
infinite mana or infinite squirrels, you didn't necessarily win.
I mean, there's a good majority of infinite combos that are 2-card that are pretty dang close to pretty much ending the game.
Oh, there are a lot of them that end the game. That's
Right.
why I think there should be a distinction between 2-card
Right.
infinite combos
And
that win.
here's a question.
And 2-card infinite combos that just go infinite.
Here's a question we have had that among us that really I don't know the answer to. Are 2-card win combos included in 2-card infinite combos?
Right, because there's technically combos that aren't infinite that win that are 2 cards. For example, now granted it won't work here because actually no, because you can have 3 game changers.
Yeah.
So Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation. It's not an infinite combo, but it is a 2-card combo that wins the game.
Well, it's yeah, it doesn't have to be infinite though.
Right, but
It
that's
just goes
so
through
that's
your
the
deck.
that's the thing
That's
though.
the thing.
That's
They said infinite in
infinite
every
specifically.
instance.
And I don't see anywhere in the article that distinguishes when we say
So they need to
2-card
clean
combos.
that up.
Yeah.
Right.
There needs to be 2-card winning combos and 2-card infinite combos. Because if you're like, I make unlimited squirrels, I'm like, do you have haste? Which that would be a 3rd card, so you don't have it. Then it's like, okay, then whatever.
Well, actually,
It's gonna come
that
to my
would be a
turn on
3rd
the board
card,
wipe.
so therefore it doesn't follow the 2-card combo.
Yeah, so they could do it.
Yeah.
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 So
I don't know. I'm not a huge fan at 3 of combo wins, to be honest with you. I just
I mean, I get what they say late game. Sure, late
Yeah.
game, but be specific. Late game to some of the guys I play with is turn 7.
Yeah,
You know?
sure. Yeah, I mean
They're
it
like,
is.
oh my word, I can't believe this game is still going at turn 7.
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know how you determine combo either, because like someone might be like, well, you Crater Hoof Behemoth. Yeah, but I had 7 creatures that I put out. Like, what is that, an 8 card combo? Like, okay, fine.
Right. I mean, and so I think that's so. Just to reiterate, 3 is no mass land denial still, no chaining extra turns still. As much as Duncan said he's okay with 3, I don't think he's okay with getting rid of all of his blood moons that he has in all of his decks that run red.
I'm okay with it. It can be one of my 3.
It says no mass land denial, though.
Right. So no mass land denial, no chaining extra turns, but you can add 2-card late game combos, 2-card infinite late game combos, and then 3 game changers. So
Are we going to talk about the game changer? We keep saying game changer. We haven't gone over that.
That's the next section.
yeah, we're gonna address that at the end because there's just too much to
Yeah,
try to
there's too
jump
much
back
about
and
it.
forth.
You're going to go down a rabbit hole when we start.
Right. So I mean,
I agree with everything in 3. I do want more definition of late game 2-card combo.
Yeah.
I want
whether
them to
that
separate 2-card infinites from 2-card win.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, and with them
And
adding game changers to this bracket, there are chances for you to have some of the combos that we're going to address them later, but there are some combos that are just straight up 2 cards that you can. Again, that's why we're talking about getting a clearer definition.
But I
of
think
infinite.
I wonder if what they mean by late game is like, you can't do it. If you can do the 2-card combo for 7 mana, that's not late game, right? Because you could have that at turn 4.
right.
And so, like, if you can have enough mana to do the combo at turn 4, it's not late game. So don't play that combo in this
Yeah, and to
area. But they haven't explained it.
Yeah, and to give you a small, again, from the article here, this is the brief synopsis they gave. They are full of carefully selected cards with work having gone into figuring out the best cards for each slot. The games tend to be a little faster, as well as ending a turn or 2 sooner than your core bracket 2 decks. This also is where players can begin playing up to 3 cards from the Game Changers list, amping up the decks further. Of course, it doesn't have to have any Game Changers to be bracket 3 deck. Many decks are more powerful than a pre-constructed deck, even without them.
See, that's what they're telling you. They're telling you, look, there's a heart of this thing. It's like, you don't even have to have Game Changers. You could still be 3. It's like, if you're out there, you know what you built it for. You know whether it's a 2 or 3. Now, I would say someone could get away with saying things like, this is a low 3. This is a high 3. I suppose you could do something like that, because I would gather that a 2 could still play a 3, and it wouldn't be massacre necessarily. But if it was a low 2 against a high 3, maybe it's challenging. And then a 3 could play a 4, but not a high 4.
Right.
Because a high 4 is
Almost CEDH.
I mean,
Right.
and that's the next problem we have is when we get into optimized. If you guys remember, we talked about optimized basically has no rules.
Yeah.
Well, 4 and 5 are no different other
Right.
than the heart of what you're doing, like meta game specific. Like in 5, you're just playing the same decks as everybody else.
Right.
And in 4, you're not. But I think there should be some more rules.
Oh
for
yeah,
4.
no, I think
It's
4 should
stupid
say
there's no
even if it
rules.
says 10 game changers, there's at least a limit.
Yeah, and I don't, not 10, but 10 is a limit.
So 4 and 5 we can kind of talk about together because 4, like you said, is optimized. 5 is CEDH, but on paper there's no difference. It's what
Right.
your intent is. There are definitely. I actually think there should be a 4.5 or maybe a 5 and then a 6 because even in CEDH there are CEDH decks that are not tournament CEDH decks.
Well, shoot, there's tournament decks in CEDH that are still just like, hey, I wanted to build this.
Yeah.
And sometimes they make it a lot further than you think they would.
Right. But I'm saying
But they're definitely not going to win.
you can a lot of CDH players have the decks they play,
Yeah.
and then specific decks they play if it's a tournament because they know the other ones aren't as good.
All right.
Well,
It's probably true. I don't know. I don't play.
Kind of
CEDH.
the definition here from the article I'm going to read. So it says the focus here is on
This is
bringing.
for optimized.
This is for optimized. This is for bracket 4 optimized. The focus here is on bringing the best version of your deck you want to play, but not one built around a tournament metagame. It's about shuffling up your strong and fully optimized deck, whatever it may be, and seeing how it fares. For most commander players, these are their highest power commander decks you will interact with. So I think the intent here, which is, again, not defined in the actual verbiage they put on the bracket system, but in the article it's defined. It's the highest power that you're willing to play that's not focused around whatever the meta of the competitive scene is. So kind of maybe keeping in some of those pet cards that may not be the most optimal choice, but they also don't slow down the deck. They're just not, there's better options, but it's still a good option or a great option even for the deck, just not the best option. So I kind of think of this as my Prosper deck, right? My Prosper deck, I keep adding cards to it, making it better and better. It is still not what you would consider a tournament CDH deck at this point. It is very much a very optimized 4 if we're using this system. It still is not a 5 because there are plenty of cards in there that I should absolutely take out and replace with $30, $50, $70 cards that I just don't have or own.
More expensive.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what I needed. But, I think that is kind of the difference here. And again, unfortunately, they don't, there's not really a good way to put that into play between 4 and 5. But kind of like what Jeff is saying, the intent of 4 is this is a deck that you've built, that you've optimized to the best of your abilities without going into the meta game of CEDH and seeing what they're building for a tournament and changing it accordingly. I think is
And I think
what they're going for.
CEDH, the goal is to win as fast as possible.
Right.
That's basically it.
Mm-hmm.
4, you want to win. You want to be the one that wins. That's probably you've tweaked the deck to try and do that. I mean, there may be some 4s where it's like you don't want to win, but you really want to mess with people.
I think you want to win at 4.
Yeah.
But with 5, you want to win as fast as you can.
I just think it's a different game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's completely a different game. In 5, you're going to play all the fast mana. You're not worried at all about playing a lot of lands because you don't care if you draw a land on turn 5 because turn 5 isn't going to happen.
Right.
So you're just all fast mana, all dump it out, go for the win real quick right now. And that's just not how you build casual decks. You build casual decks with some staying power because you actually want to play the cool card that you own.
Right.
In CEDH, you don't care about playing the cool card. You just want to play the best card for right then.
Right.
And
I don't know why they insist on pretending like it's the same game.
it's a different, it's just different.
It should have its own rules, its own ban list.
It should, 100% should, yeah.
But for now, we're gonna deal with this.
But
and-
it does the same thing if 4 is different. If 4 sets limits, then 5 is different in its own game.
Right.
Because you could have unlimited game changers. 4, like imagine if someone's playing a 4 and they're playing Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, a One Ring, Tabernacle, Pendervale, Grim Monolith, Lion's Diamond, Mox Diamond, Mana Vault, Glacial Chasm. You're like, what in the actual heck? That is not a casual deck. And there's no world where that's a casual deck. So why is that okay?
Right.
Yeah, I think if they're going to put such an emphasis on the game changers, which Jeff just read off a good chunk of the colorless ones, I think.
Almost all of them.
Almost all
You
of them.
skipped over like 2.
If that is what you're going to keep referring to with all of these other levels of casual, which again, 1, 2, and 3 all have game changer limits and rules.
Right.
So if you're saying that 4 isn't CEDH, then I think to stick with the theme, there should be game changer limits.
Yeah.
That would make sense because even if it's 5 or 7 or 10, whatever, as long as you put a number there, then there becomes a distinction. Okay, well, once you surpass this with your 4, you are now officially CEDH. You are no longer in the casual commander format. You have gone out of it.
I think there's a level at which I think it really is. Duncan, you might have talked about it earlier. It really is built around the fast mana thing. Like when I'm building a deck, it's not even in my thought process to run some of these cards.
Right.
But when you're playing CEDH, you're running all of them.
Right.
And so I feel like there's a level to which they almost should say like game changers, fast mana, because that's what separates. Combos and fast mana is what separates CEDH.
Right. I mean, like that's and I do agree with that because most CEDH decks, if you look at them, I can guarantee you if they are any kind of multicolored CEDH deck, they have one of the 5 original dual lands in them without fail. They will always have them because they are extremely powerful land cards, and every single land that you go to fetch for can get one of them and put it in
life
untapped.
makes a difference,
Right.
especially when many times you're using life as a resource just to win the game.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah, but they've got to define this at some point a little bit better. I think 4 needs some more restrictions or just finally communicate what the difference between these two styles is. And I think you had a funny story. There's because I talked about it last week how I didn't like how some of the proxy decks were really, really expensive. And then when I had more time to think about it, I was like, it wasn't an issue with proxying. That's not my problem. I don't care if you proxy. My issue was with how many expensive cards you have in your deck.
So I think Chris was probably the biggest culprit of this that you saw. And
Yeah.
Chris, when we had our group chat about this list coming out, and people were kind of mocking it a bit in the group, kind of like, come on, what's a few mean? No restrictions between 4 and 5. How is that? And she goes, yeah. I mean, it says all my decks are CEDH, or at least
Right.
a 4.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
yeah.
She's like, wait, what? And we're like, no, we know. They are.
Yeah. Exactly.
All of your decks have the fast combo wins, all the mana rocks, all the optimal cards. Your decks are all CEDH. There's I said maybe her Marin deck isn't, but other than that, they're all CEDH.
Right.
So yeah, that was just kind of funny. But did you read the definition for 5 too?
So no, I didn't get to 5 yet because
Right.
we kind of were picking it apart a little bit. So 5, it says mindset is a key part of that description. Much of it is in how you approach the format and deck building. It's not just no holds bar where you play your most powerful cards like in bracket 4. It requires careful planning. There is care paid into following and paying attention to a metagame and tournament structure, and no sacrifice are made in the deck buildings as you try to be one of the one to win the pod. Additionally, there is special care and attention paid to behavior and table-side negotiations, such as not making a spite plays or concessions that play into the tournament structure. So it not only is this, according to Gavin's article here, focusing on the deck building itself, but just the entire play style,
Right.
from how you're playing that game with that deck. And this is very true of when you look into it more. I've watched some CEDH gameplay online, and every single time they do something, they know exactly what they're going to do next. Like there's no hesitation on, should I go get this card or this? Nope. They know exactly what card they're going to get. They know exactly what their combo. They know
they're
everything.
doing the same thing every time.
Right. Exactly.
The deck's designed to just do the same thing every
and
time.
it's usually a net deck. It's usually a specific list. I have the
Right.
Karakushima list.
Right.
I have the.
And there's when you look up those lists, and I guarantee you, and you can go look up tournament lists because they have to submit them. I think when they go to play,
They do submit them.
they have to submit them. You can go see, and you can look up. Let's say, let's go look up Turgid. If you look up every Turgid commander, almost all of them are going to be identical. There's
maybe 2 or 3 cards,
and that's
that are
it.
different.
There's almost no variance, and I think that's the difference when he's talking about the mindset and the metagaming of the tournament.
And not just
style.
that, but they know the other people's decks. Like they
Right.
know exactly what that person is going to get.
Right.
So it's more like chess in that, where you're just sort of memorizing moves, but there's more luck involved than in chess. So I don't know.
Yeah, and these are two, just to touch on it also, these are the people that are going to mulligan down to 3 cards in their hand to try to win.
Yeah.
Like, they'll go down to 4 or 3 cards to win on turn 2. Like, because they know as long as I get these 3 cards, I'm pretty much set.
Right.
And so, again, that's more about the play style, which Gavin does address and say that's part of the decision of if you're going into CDH or not.
Yep.
So, I mean, in regards to what do we think of bracket 5? I mean, it's CDH.
Yeah.
I think
There's
it's-
not really much to say.
Honestly, I think CDH is pretty boring.
Yeah, I think what we say about bracket 5 is that 4 needs to have better definition.
Yes.
Right.
I think it should
I would
say, have a maximum number of extra turns you can chain together. I think it should say, I think there should be some limit, even if it's 10 or 20 or whatever, how many game changers.
Or what's going to happen is they've really done nothing for 4, and everybody's just going to be like, well, I'm going to play 3, so I'm safe.
I
Because
think
in
that's
3,
what they
I'm
want.
safe. I'm like, I know you can only have 3 game changers, so I'm okay.
I feel like they want people to be 3 and under, and then the 4 and 5, they're like,
Do whatever you want.
do whatever you want. We don't.
But
care.
I think that's unfair.
You're not one of
Because
us.
there is a realm between 3 and absolute, like chaos.
Right. So,
So, I mean, those are the brackets. Those are how we feel about them. I feel like there's some vagueness in there that needs to be kind of gone through and cleaned up.
yeah, and a little bit of that might be because, again, this is a beta. So
Yeah.
they wanted
Well-
to keep it vague so they can then maybe start honing it in.
Well,
Again,
because
especially when they're testing
When you have
it.
a set group of people, right? What is it, 14 people or 15 people
Yeah,
on the new committee?
in the article, they do list all the people
Right.
on the committee.
However many people that is, when
Yeah.
you have just a single group, there's going to be a skew. The smaller the group, the bigger the skew as to what your definitions of things are.
Well,
And that's not necessarily what the average players is going to be, or your majority of players.
it's a pretty big group, and I do think there's a tendency in big groups like that when you're at a table making a decision for you to create the camel. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but it's the horse that was created by committee. Because it's just a goofy looking horse. It's effective maybe, but you're like, why? What?
Well-
Who designed that weird looking thing?
like when you were talking to me, you were talking about how they probably had to make concessions.
Oh,
to
they
each
did,
other.
yeah.
You know, somebody says, I really think this needs to be on the game changer list. And somebody else is like, I really don't think it does. And at the end, they're like, you know what? I'll let yours go on if you let mine go on. You know, something like that.
They could have done that, but I hope it was more like, well, you feel very strongly. I don't feel that strongly, so I'm not going to die on this hill, so I'm going to back off. And if
Right.
enough people felt really strongly, it made it on this list and vice versa.
Right.
yeah,
I
there's.
hope they didn't trade out things like, well, if you give me my Mox Diamond, I'll give you your Gaia's Cradle or whatever.
It's called a Commander Format Panel.
That's
is
what
what
it's
it's called.
CFP.
And this has 17 names listed.
Got it.
Nailed it. But something I do want to note is both Rachel Weeks and Josh Luke are on this, which were both 2 of the people when everything happened last year stepped down from the previous.
Well, from
But
the
why
advisory.
Right,
Why does
exactly.
that
They
matter?
just because you have these people who, again, if you want to go back and watch the videos or read what they talked about, that were very jaded against what happened against them with everything that happened last year. But they came back into this to help the format still. So
Because they're being listened to.
right,
They weren't
exactly.
being
And I
listened to
think,
before.
yeah, and I think that's something to just kind of, I guess, pay attention to, because we do have people, including Olivia and some other people that are somewhat notable in regards to the kind of YouTube commander stuff that
Well,
are
Olivia was the rules committee before,
right. Yeah. So she's also on this, but
she
it's
sounded like the more reasonable one from, when that came out. They even said,
I don't think we need to go. I don't think there's a whole lot of. There's 17 people that are working together to try to solve this situation, and they're smart, connected. They understand what's going on in the community for the most part.
But
I think they did a very good job
17
with this.
people can know what the majority of players want. They all have their own opinions and what happens in their metas and what they've seen. But I think that's why you leave some things vague and, like he said, maybe let it be.
Yeah.
Magic
out.
controls this game now. It's not done by a separate entity.
right.
I like
this is
that.
in-house.
When Magic says this is the rules, that's the rules. They don't have to ask if that. They could, but they don't have to.
Well, I feel like that's what this is doing, though. Is
They're
like,
trying
we
to
got the
involve them.
framework.
Yeah.
We have a beta. Go out there, do it, and play.
So
do we want to separate these by like favorite color or something?
So I mean, we can just hit on the
We're not
game
gonna
changers
list them
real
all
quick.
off.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd be here.
All right. Well, you want to talk about any notables?
I think notable inclusions and notable exclusions.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'll hit one real quick because I mentioned it before. How they said there's basically a few tutors allowed in every bracket up until 4 and 5 where it's unlimited. So they hit enlightened tutor, they hit vampiric tutor, they hit demonic tutor. So all of those tutors that are kind of known for being like the powerful ones that kind of end games are on the Game Changers list, which is why I think
The
they
tutors that
allowed
get anything or that get artifacts or enchantments. Or
Right.
Well, the things that get
That are
something, the things most often used to go get the winning combo.
right.
But not the tutors to go get creatures is what you're saying.
Right.
And all of these tutors also are instant, unlike some of the other tutors that they left on, which that aren't in here. Are
Imperial Seal
sorceries.
is not instant.
Yeah.
Well,
But it
that's
is
a different. Yeah.
it is low mana cost.
Yeah, it's a
It's
one.
a one. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is there are other ones that they obviously aren't on the Game Changers that they allow you to use in the few tutors because they're sorcery speed. So it's not like you can go get it before someone's turn ends to win, and they're usually higher CMC.
And or less efficient mana, or they're going and getting creatures, which I think what they felt like in this was there's so many ways to deal with creatures. We're not that worried if you go get one.
Right.
So-
Jeff, what are your notables?
I mean, the stuff you would expect, like, Gaia's Cradle is on here, which is pretty powerful. The thing that I think is funny is it got 2 of your commanders, which I think is hilarious.
I do not think it's hilarious.
I managed to, avoid this list almost altogether. Like, it hit my Gaia's Cradle. I think I have Vorn Klex in maybe one deck.
Don't you have some Jessica's Wills too?
I do have some of these cards,
Yeah.
but like, my favorite cards are avoided on here, which is nice.
Yeah, I will say I think it's somewhat funny that Prosper didn't get hit because I feel like every single time I pull him out, everyone's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna kill you."
Eureka got hit though.
Yeah, she
and,
did.
And
But it's because
Duncan,
she's
talk
blue-black.
about yours.
Jingataxius was done dirty.
No, you
Here's my
deserved
thing.
it.
If Jingataxius was the commander of my core deck, is that so bad?
I mean,
Yeah.
He costs 10 mana.
Yeah, it depends on how you build them.
but
If
again,
you build
there's
him
nothing
to
in
have
here.
him out on turn 4. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, there's-
Hard to do with all the 0-drop mana rocks listed on the.
There's still mana rocks though that can help you get him out pretty quick.
I'm just saying, I don't think he belongs on here. I understand the salt involved with him, but he costs 10 mana, and the only reason I built him to begin with was, can I do that? Can I make a 10 mana?
And then what did you learn?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, and when can you do it? By turn what?
Sometimes turn 4,
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, geez, when they
To
didn't.
be fair, I remember that one game we played at the shop, and I got the Dragon on turn 3. But that's not regular. That was like the perfect confluence of events.
Well, so
Right.
was mine.
no,
Stop
no,
it.
stop.
Dude,
Get out of here.
when
You play all the fast
when
mana. I played
all the
2
fast mana
rocks.
was open, like you would consistently, he was out between 3 and 5. Like no, even like sort of
The only reason why it wasn't is
consistently.
because we'd destroy his mana rock.
Yeah, we blow up
Yeah.
mana
I
rocks or
know.
whatever.
These bullies would blow up my mana rocks. Can
That's
you
right.
believe that?
That's right. Bully the blue player.
Yeah, jeez.
So he
The
gets
one
a
that takes
conscience.
away all of our lands
So
and all of
the
our
other thing I'll
hands.
point out that's notable: red has 2 cards on here, and
Yeah.
green has 3.
Right.
And
Yeah,
technically,
green got
Gaia's
avoided.
Cradle is not green,
That's
Yeah.
true.
that.
No,
That
yeah,
is
because it
colorless.
can't.
It's a colorless
but
land
it's
that
for
produces green.
it should be.
You
under
can
green
only
'cause
put it
it's-
in a green deck. Though?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, because its color identity is green because it has I think a
But
forest.
so, the other notable thing, there is a card that 100% does not belong on here, and that's
Oh.
Thassa's Oracle.
okay, I'm
You know why I said that.
I understand why you're saying it, but when you think about it, it's
I am.
either they ban one card and let the other two reign because the other two are really only good with her, or they have to ban 2 cards to let her go.
Those
but
two
if they
cards.
don't ban all, it's not banned. If they don't put all
Game
3
Changers,
on
sorry.
this list, then you can still play it. You just play one Thassa's Oracle and the other 2, and you're still only at 1 Game Changer.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
what's garbage. Thassa's Oracle without those other cards is not broken in any
So
way,
actually,
shape,
what
or
we're
form.
saying is all 3 should be on this list.
What I'm saying is all the cards that make her broken should be on this list.
Right.
Because when
That's
is the
too
time-
many cards.
Tell me a story about the time you've seen Demonic Consultation played with anything other than Thassa's
I've
Oracle.
never seen it played because I don't play CEDH.
I'm actually putting it in a deck right now that doesn't have. Actually, it does have Thassa's Oracle, but that's not why I'm putting it in there.
Why are you putting it in there?
Because it's a dig deck, so I just want to.
Oh, so you're going to name a card you're actually looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But my point is, 99% of the time, it's only in there to do dirty things. Thassa's Oracle can be used fair. Your son has it in a Merfolk deck. doesn't
Yeah,
it?
and it's perfectly fine. in
Yeah.
there.
By itself, Thassa is just mild.
And what I would say is if you're going to, like, if my son's coming to play and let's say just Thassa Oracle is in there, which I don't think it is. I think Fierce Guardianship and stuff is in there too. But let's say somehow he's at 4 Game Changers. I think I would just tell him to tell people, look, technically I have 4, but one of them's Thassa's Oracle, and I don't have any way to use it except for as a Merfolk.
Right.
Yeah, because
So I'm
that
not
deck's
counting
blue-green,
it as
so.
a game changer.
Yep.
If that's a problem for you, I'll play another with someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
I do think there should have been more green cards on here. I do think there's some strong enough to have been.
I think they
Worthy.
I think they showed they have class and wisdom.
I just
in their
realized.
choices.
I just realized too, like, you know how we always talk about like who's the strongest and weakest color? It almost matches up perfectly with what we say.
No, it doesn't. Because
Yeah, it does.
green is so underrepresented.
Well, besides that, but like we
So
always
if
talk
you
about how
ignore
red's.
green.
Yeah, if we always talk about how red's the weakest, and when it comes to like just trying to do anything because they took away Dockside and like it's
Yeah.
just like they got nothing going for them. So like that has the least amount of cards banned, and then white has the second least amount of cards banned,
No,
and then
third,
black,
also
and
say
then
third most.
I don't.
well we're ignoring green because green
yeah,
they
green.
We're
clearly
ignoring
everyone on that
one of
committee
the
plays
5
green.
colors to make this point.
So no, there's technically multicolored and
Because
there's
there
colors.
should be more green
Get out of here.
cards.
There should be more green cards on here, and I think that
Well, good for white.
I would
white
put,
has some
I would
good
put
cards.
Worldly Tutor on here just because it's so ridiculously cheap compared to the other green tutors.
yeah, it's one.
Yeah, but
all
I
the
think
tu-
their point
all
is
the
you're just
tutors are
going and
one.
Getting a creature.
Sure.
And so you go get a creature on turn 1, turn 4, all the creatures are gone. Like, so what difference does it make?
Then why does survival of the fittest matter? Because somebody could wipe the board.
Because that keeps happening.
Oh, here you go. Here's one I don't know why it's not on here. Teferi's Protection. How come that's not on there?
No, I told you they had wisdom and class.
Because it's a
That should absolutely be in
hair
here.
should not be on here.
No. Teferi's Protection you can absolutely use as a win combo. Absolutely. There is a lot of people who use it as a win combo.
They hit the Fierce Guardianship for the 0 cost stuff, but they ignored Deflecting SWAT and what's the black one?
Deadly
Deadly
Rollick.
Rollick.
Yeah.
Which, if you're gonna put the 0 cost stuff on here, put the 0 cost stuff on here.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. I would say any of the 0 cost spells because
Not
you have
any
your
of them. The white one's not that.
hold
good.
on, because you have your commander out should probably be on here.
Well, there's one where if you have your commander out, it costs 4 mana and it gives them all kinds of abilities, but that's not very good. It's
I'm
4
talking about
mana. It's not a game changer.
It's not free though.
No, oh, so you're saying
The ones
free
that are
ones that matter when
your commander's out.
But isn't there a white one that isn't very good that matters?
No,
when
it's
your
really
commander's
good.
out?
It makes all your creatures indestructible.
Yeah.
It protects you from a board wipe.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you can murder once-
Fairy's Protection.
Yeah, but also Jeff doesn't really care about his creatures dying and swinging out at people, so
Right.
he doesn't understand the value of that.
I think
That's
green
literally
needs to
how I
have-
win.
Green needs to have more representation on there.
I do think there's plenty of green cards that could be on here.
Yeah.
Red's fine where it's at.
Yeah.
Leave poor
Stop
Red
picking
alone.
on
I
Red.
mean, honestly, Jessica's Will. It's a cool card, but I don't think it's that powerful.
I don't think it's a game changer. It's a game changer with certain commanders in certain decks.
I mean,
but
7 mana for 3 mana is pretty good.
But that's only if someone has 7. If you're playing certain games, like there's sometimes where no one has any cards in hand. So
I
casting
have
or
seen that, but the majority of the time somebody's got to save it till there's 7 or 6.
Obscuring Haze. If your commander's out, you may cast a spell with paying its mana cost. Prevent all damage that would be dealt this turn by creatures your opponents control. Should not be in the Game Changer list. But that is a free one.
yeah.
The white one, maybe.
Well, I'm
but
talking about the
Flawless
ones that
Maneuver isn't
specifically
even
came from
that good.
Ixalan. Remember when they made those 5 precons and each of them had one of them?
Anyway,
It's
we're
one of
not
those.
we're not gonna get into that.
Oh, this was the green one. That's right. The green one.
So the other thing interesting, I think. Anything last you want to say about Game
No.
Changers?
No, I think for the most
Other
part,
than they did a pretty good job, honestly.
I think there's more stuff that will be on here by the time they're done with their test.
I do too.
Yeah, but leave T
For sure.
Pro alone.
No, T Pro should definitely be on.
Nope.
But the other thing that came out is they said there perhaps maybe some unbans.
Yes.
Yes, they did hint at that.
Yeah. Because if they unban things, they can put them on the Game Changers list as kind of like a test and see how it goes, and if it's still too powerful.
Which is why Mana Crypt shot up to $200. Jeweled Lotus shot up.
Dockside.
Dockside shot up.
I
But
do not
I don't
think-
think they're unbanning
No.
those.
Well,
Not
if
right
they,
now.
if they unban any of it, I think it might be Mana Crypt.
Mana
and
Crypt.
I don't know if it would be this soon or not.
It's so hard to not think it's going to be Mana Crypt because Jewel Lotus and Dockside, I get it. They should stay banned. I get it. I get the uproar about them.
I think they're
But
gonna wait a
Mana
little
Crypt,
longer.
it is so hard to keep that card banned. It is so hard.
Do you know the backlash they're going to get, though, if people went out? Like, if people went out and sold their... They got to let this sit a little longer. Because
Possibly.
if people went out and sold their... Which we didn't. We kept ours. And by the way, I went through some decks and I found some more. And I
Me
was
too.
like, yeah.
Me too. Because I had some decks that I put in a drawer of
Yeah.
like, I'll get back to these like eventually.
So I kept my Mana Crypt, Jeweled Lotus, and my Docksides and all that stuff. But matter of fact, I kept my Nadu too, the bird that won't be mentioned that I mentioned.
I don't
but
know
I
why
don't
you
think
keep that. That wasn't even $3 when they banned
I
it.
just have it in my binder. Who wants it? Like, what am I gonna? No one's
Yeah.
gonna buy it. It's garbage. But it is funny.
So they said if you're looking for bans, look to April. That's when they may be ready to unban some stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean the stuff
It's
they
gonna
just
be like
did.
Coalition Relic and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's gonna be some of
stuff
those
that-
really
You
old
keep
bands
saying
that don't mean.
Coalition Victory.
Victory. Sorry.
Coalition Relic is not banned. It's not even a very
I
good
know.
mana rock.
Coalition Victory. Okay.
Actually,
So-
it's a decent mana rock. But so that's something that keep your eye on. Don't try and prospect. Don't try and guess what it's going to be.
Or
But-
do.
But with that being said, what are we going to guess they're going to make?
why they could? I mean, guess if you want.
I
Yeah.
mean, Flash. I think they'll unban Flash.
Maybe.
I don't think so.
I
Because
think
it's only on there for CEDH, and I think they're just going to cut it to the wild and say, you deal with it.
maybe. I mean, if they do that, there's going to be a lot of what is it? Flash, the Hulk. What is it called?
Flash Hulk, yeah.
Yeah, the Flash, the actual creature though. What's its name?
Protean Hulk.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like that's going to come right back in the meta as soon as they unban it.
Yeah. But,
So
I mean, I'll be interested to see. Is some cards on the ban list that aren't that strong. But there's also some stuff that really deserves to be on there and needs to stay to be on there. So
yeah,
I think they'll be careful. That if anything, it'll be 1 or 2 cards.
yeah. There's some of those ones that are on there that I saw because again, there's a lot of people kind of speculating about this all over the place. So there's some of theirs that are on there.
Probably not
Gosh,
Gulos,
do
though,
not,
maybe.
do not do that.
Iona.
But
Iona might come off.
no, because Iona locks people out of the game. I don't think they want that.
Yeah,
Like
but
she
it's not-
just locks an entire color out of the game.
I
So
don't think she was really causing that much of a problem. with Commander.
I do think some of the ones that like do mana stuff that were on there might come off.
Like Rofellos?
I can't
He
remember.
does mana stuff. He's the one who taps for every green creature you have, I think, or creature. But he's a legendary, so you can put him in the command zone, which was always
Right.
a problem for
Yeah.
the while. They banned him from the command zone, but I think you could put him in and see what happens.
Yeah. So I mean, because they have freaking Vorinclex that triples your mana. Like,
Yeah.
But he's not
But now
legendary.
you could play both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't have
Dude,
any other
Dude,
tripling
free the
effects.
ban list. Let's go. Let's just do it.
Gosh, you sound like who is it?
because-
Cassius Clay
Well, because now you got the
and Post Malone.
3 game changers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. You can have 3 of them.
But anyway, I mean, none of us know what's going to be unbanned.
Right.
But it'll be interesting if they do and to see what it is and,
And
see
you
how
can-
it goes and see how fast they put it back
Yeah,
on.
we can
If
bet your
possible.
bottom dollar we're going to talk about it as soon as they unban
Black
it.
Lotus. Why are we banning that?
Right?
Bring
And who can
that
afford
back.
one anyway?
Who's that going to affect, really?
I mean, Post Malone's got one.
Jeff's like, if you unban it, maybe I can find a near mint one
If
of those.
you unban it, maybe I buy it. That's what I'm saying.
Please.
And maybe you can find a near mint like you got your near
I
mint.
doubt I'm gonna buy
Guy's
that.
Cradle.
Like, what's the cheapest Black Lotus you can get? Can you get one for
didn't talk
$10,000?
about your greatest achievement when you got back.
Oh yeah, the
that's
one
right.
thing that was worth going to MegaCon was what's it called?
CGC.
CGC. So my wife for Christmas, what a awesome gift. She bought me a Gaia's Cradle near mint from TCG Player. So we decided we'd take it to CGC and have it graded. It came back as a 9.5.
That's crazy.
It was
Crazy.
awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yep, that's amazing. But so anyway, that's kind of the whole Game Changers brackets thing in a nutshell. We think there's some areas that it definitely can be and will be fine-tuned.
Yeah.
They're
Hopefully.
gonna tweak this and see how it goes.
I mean, it's much different than what they originally presented back in October or November.
Thankfully. Hey,
So.
you have an ancient tomb. Now you're a tier 4.
Yeah. So clearly they listened. They made modifications already once. Again, this is
Yep.
beta, so we'll see what happens.
Yep. Sloan, you got any tips for us this week?
Yeah, kind of just rounding out what we just discussed. One of the things that Gavin did mention in the article, he stated it right at the beginning, just to kind of emphasize this to everybody. This is a beta test, and it's the number one point in the article whenever you go to read it, if you do read it. For many people who play Commander, nothing will change. You can continue to play with your friends as you always have without digging into the system, and it's totally fine. Remember, guys, this is not meant to change how you play Magic with your friends. If you guys just want to ignore this and act like it doesn't exist and just keep playing the way you are with your friends, Gavin, the mouth of basically this entire system, said, go for it. So don't anticipate you have to change how you're playing with your friends or how you're playing at home and how you're doing everything. This is mainly meant for people when they go out into the wild to try to be able to sit down at a table and play an even game of Commander Magic. That is what this is intended for. So you can let it modify your home games. You can let it change how you guys play together, but you don't have to. And then also, as we keep saying, it's a beta. This isn't even close to being completed.
But
so,
if your at-home group is going through an arms race,
Well,
which
and there
we've gone through, right? And
Yeah.
you're like, whoa, I just keep having to buy more and more expensive cards. This could really help you,
yeah, it could.
Or
Absolutely.
you could just tell Jeff to just suck it up and buy more and more expensive cards.
which you did, and I did.
Yeah. But the other thing is sometimes there's that one player who doesn't believe you that their decks are that strong.
Yeah.
You know, and now you're like,
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you got some strong decks there, buddy.
Yep.
So, but
that's
yeah,
a good point.
yeah, just take
you don't,
this
like
grain
we
of
said at
salt.
the beginning, you don't have to follow this. It's up to you. This is optional. But if you're in a situation where you're trying to make a matchup and you're trying to have a roll zero conversation, this helps a lot. This takes the ambiguity out of what is casual.
Yeah,
You know?
Yes. Yeah.
and I think that's its
And
intent.
the ambiguity of that, oh, my deck's a 7, because all decks are 7s. Didn't you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us. If you want to check us out, commanderspod.com, go right ahead. We'd love to see you there. Please email us, cast@commanderspod.com. Don't forget our contest we're running. You can win the full foil set of the Marvel Secret Lair. All you got to do is email us at cast@commanderspod.com. Subject line is contest, and in the body put where you're subscribed to us and what your handle is. For every place you're subscribed, you get an entry. You have to be subscribed to YouTube to win. And again, just email us. If you are a Patreon subscriber, it is 3 automatic entries without you having to do anything. You can always check us out, patreon.com/commanderspod. We'd love to have your support. A few new members there. I got to get you out your Discord server invites. I apologize. It's been very busy, but I will do that. And look forward to interacting with you guys some more. And before we go, I just want to say, let's be a little friendlier. I usually talk about killing Andrew first, but in this instance, free Jingataxius.
Yeah.
Commander's Pod, where the stories unfold, with heroes and villains, new and old. Duncan, Jeff, and Sloan guide the way in the world of EDH we play. So tune in, friends, let's draw and go. In the Commander's Pod, the love will show. From our decks to yours, we share the spark in this world of magic. We'll leave our mark.